to talk about plants.
Well, that's coming up on our unfinished business, so we've got that. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to call to order the October 7th meeting for PR&G, and we're going to call it at 9 a.m. exactly. We have a full quorum. Let's go ahead and get started. We don't have any remote participation, so we'll move forward. First up is the adoption of today's agenda. You should have all received that last week. I make a motion to pass the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Next up is the adoption of the previous meeting minutes. Again, those were attached in the updated packet from last week. Anyone have any feedback, questions on the minutes?
Nope.
All right, so I make a motion to pass the minutes as published. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Moving on. Public comment. We do not have anyone signed up for public comment. So 2 items today for unfinished business. And with both of these items, we do want to make some recommendations from the board. And I guess I'll look to you, Austin, if we formally need to do a vote. But I want to make these so that John can bring them forward to our next council meeting. And it's kind of time sensitive as we look forward to the project.
Just one reminder before you go into this item, whatever proposal you guys agree on from the memorial bench, we do not have that budgeted, so we will have to go see if we can pull the money from another account, or we might need to do a budget amendment. So
Okay,
if
good.
you're aware.
No, thank you for that. That was going to be one of the questions, and then also where we might tap into some other sources too. So, okay, so the first item up on our unfinished business is finalizing the proposal for Mike Cognac's memorial. We've certainly talked about this a number of times, and really glad to see the momentum. Last couple weeks or couple meetings, John brought forward the wording. We had shared that with the Cognac family, and they were very touched and supportive of the way we were going to represent Mike's contributions to the village. So I think as far as that, and obviously before we print something, we'll do a final check over it, but the intent of the way it's worded, the idea of dedicating the Marvin Loop to Mike was all kind of in the decisions that have been coming forward. So what I wanted to talk about today is actually what we're going to do the plaque on. We've talked about benches, we've talked about plaques, and then the idea is we'll put it somewhere in the new Village Hall Park, likely near where the entrance of the loop will be, since we're acknowledging it being the loop contribution.
The trailhead.
The trailhead, and then again, so we can look, and I think in our next item, we have the view of the kind of the garden
Yeah, there's
itself.
kind of that squiggly bit
Yeah.
where the trail meets the Marvin Loop, and I kind of feel like that's the spot. We'll get there.
Okay, so location, and I think that's, that'll be probably the final piece, obviously, but we need to also agree on the what we're going to, and that's what I wanted to share here. So in this handout, we've talked about a bench, and I think a bench always brings you kind of to a location. If you see a bench, you approach it, so it's not like you would just walk past a small plaque or a rock. But putting that information all on a plaque on a bench could be too wordy. I mean, you don't want to overwhelm the bench, and then it becomes, no one wants to sit on it.
You sort of have to have the sign and the bench.
So that was the thought, is to put a sign next to the bench, so when you approach the bench, you could see the wording of it. And then there's 2 options. A is more the typical plaque, and as I walked in here, like the Habitat Wildlife sign, it's just ground, and that's relatively affordable, and you would have all the information there. Or if you wanted to go like C, which is you find a boulder or a rock, I'm sure we could find one, and then attach the plaque to it. And I think that's a little more formal, looks a little bit more like a memorial than just a stake in the ground too. So I think that's the consideration, but before we kind of move forward, just get people's feedback. I guess first off, the bench is kind of the foundational. Do we feel like we want to have a minimum of bench and then some wording, or do we feel like just a plaque? I think the bench is kind of, I think, John, earlier on, you said we don't want to just do a bench, but a bench plus a plaque.
Yeah, well, one of the things, and I don't know how functional that is, but I've often seen benches like that where they may have a plaque, but it kind of extends off the back. And I guess that would be important as to where we have the placement on it, because if you have a bench,
Can't see.
you probably have it sitting off a trail, so it would depend on the visibility of it, that people would even see it to read it. But yeah, any of these other ideas, seems good as well to me.
And then I was thinking on the bench-wise, I know in Marvin Efert, we do have several benches in there, and I've seen some, small little plaques. And so I don't know if there's some consistency we want to use, or I don't think there's any benches on the hall, but you've got the rocker. So something that would be in line with the way that we've already purchased.
Well, I like
benches.
the idea of having a bench, and then if it's only a bench, the way to deal with the plaque is like, for example, this image we have of a bench is all slats, but if the center panel is solid, then the plaque is mounted there. The only problem is that if you do sit on the bench and lean back on an engraved plaque, it's not the most comfortable thing.
Yeah.
So not that we're trying to provide, a reading room out there or anything like that, but, there's a little bit of friction.
And I think there's a lot of
so-
text too, so I think the problem is there's a lot of text.
Well, I
so,
think we
yeah.
would be, if we, I think it would probably, the back of a,
whole
if there were a center panel and it was
Sure.
wide enough, we would probably be able to fit this text, which, by the way, love the text, and I think, John, you were very instrumental in creating that, so, thank you. And so, I mean, if we just wanted to do bench, say, for economic considerations, I would say it could go on a center panel. But of these three, I mean, I definitely like a bench, but I like the rock. I think,
She just says she likes it all.
You like it
no,
all?
I like the rock.
Check,
I like
check.
the rock.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I
So
like
you
the rock.
bench and rock is what you're saying,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh,
so.
bench and rock.
Bench
Okay.
and rock.
Okay, so the rock is next to somewhere near the bench so you can read the plaque, and I don't know what it takes to affix-
Theoretically, yeah, if we could position the rock such that you could, reflect on the rock while you're sitting on the bench, that's ideal, but I don't know if the
Okay.
space would be
Looking at
there.
Matt's going, we're gonna find a good rock, right? We're just,
Let you know, you're talking about the consistency of the plaques on the benches at the park. That's, the plaque from the Girl Scout or Boy Scout program did those particular benches.
But they're wooden
Okay.
benches.
are they wooden benches?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
with
wanna
a little
go,
metal plaque. I mean,
okay, I
it's-
didn't realize they're wooden. So I think, do we wanna go with more of a surface like a metal bench? At least that's what's
Something that
proposed.
requires less maintenance.
Yeah,
This, you buy once and you're.
Yeah,
I think like those polywood ones
Yes.
are really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, for the bench, I think a polywood would be great, and then, like I said, if we run into some sort of economic considerations, if we could make if there were an option available that has a solid center panel, and
They
a
definitely
plaque
have
could be
made those.
mounted to that, then that's one option. But my preference, I think, would be for both, is plain bench and the rock
I
option.
like the rock and the bench together, but we don't have to buy them at the same year or the same time.
No.
Right? I mean, you could say, this is our plan, and for this year, we have the budget to do X, and for next year, we have the budget of Y.
Yeah, we could at least get the rock up.
Yeah, I said at least, we want to, we don't want to put a bench and not put the memorial. I think that's also a little bit
Yeah,
time.
no, I think we need
time
rock
sensitive.
Rock first, bench
Yes.
second.
Second, yes.
Rocks, paper.
Rock it down.
But sensitivity on time, that we do the memorial first at a
Yeah.
minimum.
The bench shouldn't be overwhelmingly expensive. The plaque on another surface would be what's expensive, because you would likely want to get one like we have on the front of the building.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be $1,000 or more, depending on the material. And I think that's either bronze or brass out there. I think it's bronze, which is typically what you want for outdoors.
Right, so doing any plaque at all is our big
Yes.
spend. And then what we mount it on and position next to it and style it with is inconsequential.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's
relatively
gotta-
speaking.
If it's gonna be on a rock, it's gotta be kind of in the rock a little bit.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
we will have to like carve
Right,
into
so I
the
don't
rock,
know,
but
yeah,
the
I
rock
don't-
itself
Yeah, so
theoretically
I don't
might
know
be
how we find the
almost
rock,
free.
or find the right rock.
I'm not
that we
sure
can-
how one does that.
Right,
I
I
would
just,
say at Sage at Marvin or whatever, they have an enormous pile of boulders. They
There you go.
probably would love to get rid of one
okay,
of
so
those.
send our crew over, right?
Yeah, just Joe Kerr, there's a giant pile of boulders by the road and,
Okay.
I just feel like that's one of those things that sounds easy. It may
No,
not.
that's
Probably
no,
not.
it's probably not. So do I hear that, looking for the bench, if it has to be two phases, we would put the plaque up first, and then of A and C, A is just a stake in the ground, B is, or C is a nicer plaque with a rock. What is the feel for that?
I'm for the rock.
Rock?
have an opinion?
The rock.
The rock, all
Okay,
right?
okay.
Wait, but I do have a question though.
Yes.
So would it be a plaque on both the bench and the rock, or just the rock?
Just the rock.
Just the
one.
rock, yeah.
But you could on the bench say in
In memory of
memory
Mike.
of Mike Cognac, and then not see rock, but the rock.
A
would
little
be there.
arrow.
But something there, because
I'm with
otherwise
Mike.
it's just a bench. It probably, I think it's a good point.
Well, I think part of it might be, you might situate the rock on one side of the path, the bench on the other, so you're seeing the plaque as you sit on the bench, and then you know they're associated together too.
Yeah.
But it's still like in memory of just a little
You can get the
something
small,
on
like the,
bench.
Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
Because people, I mean, you just might not notice. There's this bench here for no reason.
Right, okay.
Okay, so it sounds like we've kind of come to a
Come to a
consensus.
recommendation, yes. Okay, so,
Now it's just, Austin finding money.
right, so we do need to, so do we need to take a motion on this, or is this just a recommendation then that John takes to council? What's appropriate?
I mean, you guys can do it either way. If you want to do a motion, I can write one really fast.
Okay, I'd like to formalize it that way, because I know we've come up back and forth. This way, we make a motion to recommend.
And the one thing that I would add, though, is that, you know, if we're talking about what the cost is going to be, if staff can, before they present it to council, just get an understanding, because I have no idea what it takes to cut the rock and place a plaque on it.
We can reach out to our current sign vendor. We have a vendor in Indian Trail that did the one on the outside of the
Just
building.
get an estimate.
Yes.
We can do that. We can get an estimate. We can, John, if you send me the language, we can lay it out for them, or send it to them to lay out.
I think the language is on.
Yes, yeah, this is the language.
Yeah, so we can take it and get a quote. The bench shouldn't be expensive either.
Okay, well, good, and you've got a sign vendor that you've done other plaques for, so that's at least a start, so, yeah. Okay.
So I'm gonna say, hold on.
And the thing about putting a plaque on the bench is that a bench is eventually going to need to be replaced.
That's true.
A rock
We're gonna take it off.
Rocks.
isn't necessarily going to be.
We get a good
so-
rock. We get a good rock now. We get a real rock, right? We're not getting the, Well, John, then I think the other thing is, as Austin's writing that up, time-wise too, because I want to also feel like we need to set some parameters. I mean, obviously, if budget approved, that we do this in the spring as part of the fall planting, because I don't want to kick this around I don't think it's appropriate to kick it another year if we already have the idea, as long as there's funding.
The only thing that's gonna hold you back is just whatever they're doing to the site,
Yes, of
depending on the
course.
construction schedule, because you want them to essentially be done with that area, so.
So maybe that would be part of the, I don't think, is that a part of the motion, or is that more just a recommendation that we just know that as part of the layout of this, we're
You
going
guys
to
are just
incorporate the
recommending on
memorial?
on how to memorialize. You shouldn't put any time constraints in there, because we don't know what the construction schedule's actually going to be once they get started, you know, there's always.
And even if we open the park and then turn around and have this unveiling later,
Yes.
it's just another opportunity to show people the park.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, as
Sometimes
long
it's
as we-
better to have two parties.
Yeah, as long as we keep it moving forward, I think it's the only piece that
I'm
recommending.
always an advocate of two parties. and I think
Okay.
So I've got a motion to recommend the installation of a memorial bench and marker with a plaque in the Village Hall Park to memorialize former Mayor Mike Cognac.
Do you want to put the plaque on the rock?
The rock is the marker.
Okay,
Okay, all right.
as long as we all know that that's what that means?
With this little picture beside.
Right?
So do I make the motion, or did you?
You can
make
just say
the
so moved.
motion? So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed. Thank you, everybody.
Makes it easy for us.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. All right. Okay, the next item on unfinished business is finalizing the Village Hall landscaping plan. And so I think we had a really good discussion last month. Christine, I appreciate you did a lot of homework and laid things out. Last council meeting, John, I think we mentioned that we were in the process of doing what Tyler, we did, but the idea is that today we also do a recommendation of the plan to take to council so we can go moving forward. I think the other question too is, in addition to what is timing of purchasing plants, I don't know if that's something we need to recommend, but we need to have some idea if we are going to be making that purchase, and is that available to us today too, right? So we don't just have these ideas and have nothing come spring. So are we working under a timeline? I know construction has to happen, but Tyler, as far as when would we want to have everything planted or ready to plant?
Again, I think it's kind of like the bench, like Austin was saying, like, I don't want to like put a hard timeline on there, because I know we're about to enter contract, and it's in the wording of the contract, like the whole entire project has to be done by next November, but I'm thinking that they're going to be done more like end of June with the total, but I'm not sure like when they're going to get to the point of landscaping to happen. But I don't know, if it was me, I'd say like just the recommendation.
I would not put a time on it.
Yeah, I would just put the types
Okay,
and
so
what we're going to
we don't
do.
want to purchase these in the fall like because initially we were talking about doing some purchasing now, but it sounds like that would be too risky because
Because somebody's going to have to babysit.
Yeah, well, you did
Yeah,
that
no,
volunteer, did you?
Not for that.
Yes.
I think unfortunately, we are bound to whatever that construction schedule is going to end up being, you know? And, you know, certainly we want to be cost-effective in all of this, so, I mean, we'd all hate to say this, but for planting seasons, it may even be something where the construction schedule and how they roll things out is going to dictate whether we hit or miss a planting schedule.
So to that point, I would even get our little mindset that if things are delayed, which almost they always are, and I'm not gonna be an advocate of planting anything in June. It's
Correct.
too late. I did it this year, but we were very, very fortunate with weather in June. And I certainly wouldn't do it in a situation like that. So we do something like annuals and seeds and, just make it work for this year. And then in the next year, in the fall, we do whatever we plan to do, kind of thing. So we kind of hold it together until then. We have a kind of plan B plan, right? Instead of putting a bunch of stuff out there and killing it. 'Cause that's
We
what-
can definitely figure out the timeline as we go along at a staff level. Obviously, we'll come back to y'all because we always need volunteers. But it really, if you guys have, if the version of the plan that's in the packet is what you guys want, we really just need a motion to recommend approval so we can get that to council, get that approved by them, and then we can, put it on our list of things to do when the time's right.
And then this is what we're moving toward, but it might be next fall when
Correct.
we do it, not,
Okay,
yeah.
so this is the pack. The other question then, Austin, is do we need to then get it priced out? Because this is part of the overall plan, right? I mean, it's part of the grant. I mean, how do we know that we're within budget for these plans?
I'll pass it to
Oh,
Tyler.
sorry, Tyler.
I don't have it in front of me, but there is a line item in the project of what we're gonna be able to spend. I don't even wanna say what I don't wanna say it wrong, but.
Will you share that though at some point?
Yeah.
If it's $1.98, I'd like to know.
Yeah. It's good because it's in-house and it's ours. So I'll just share that with you guys when I
Okay.
have the definitive
Just so
answer.
we know we're
I
working within the
have
budget.
it,
We don't
but
come up with this plan, get it approved, and now we can afford half of
Because I
it.
have like
it's a good amount.
oh, good.
It's-
I just found a new source for some of these things too, so I think we can get.
Okay, so I think as far as timing, to make sense, we'll wait till the plan of progress, but this is only to approve the plan or recommendations and then the budget within it. So I know for time-wise, last week we went through this. Christina, do you want to highlight any changes? And I think, Jen, you also had some feedback too on some of the
Yeah,
plans.
just because I wasn't,
Right, definitely.
wasn't here.
welcome
Christina,
that.
did you have anything you wanted to reiterate from
Well, we
last
do
time?
have a couple of, like, there's, for the generator, for the
Yeah.
gigantic, really.
Well, that was actually one of my comments, is
Because I had
after.
a couple of options there.
Yeah, you had a couple of options there, and personally, I like the coral honeysuckle, but I don't want to have to build another thing.
Well, exactly.
So I think we should go with I would like to go with the evergreen options, just because the thing is so big and turquoise as opposed to the dense deciduous options.
Did you find out if we can paint it?
Did not get that
Okay.
answer, yeah.
Do you know if we can paint the generator? Oh, anybody that wants to answer me.
And I'm aware of, there's nothing against that, that's just Cummings color.
You gotta
Okay.
use a certain, well, they might be angry about it,
Okay.
marketing.
Find out from our Cummings contact.
Yeah, and what kind of paint if we were, because if we painted it darker green, it would disappear a little bit more, and so no matter what you put in front of it. The plants though that were specified are about,
I know, no, I don't, I totally agree with your substitutions. I had a modification to add to that, is that the we're talking about, the screenings that kind of are like trail side are the viburnum and the osmanthus, is to put some of those in there so that
like
it
that.
ties in.
I like
It's not like, oh, this little monoculture, and I know it didn't have to be a monoculture, but it was holly and holly.
no, actually, one
For
of
the
my
evergreen?
mixed screen was a ton of different things.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I remember.
Just one second.
But
But I
some of
love
those were,
that idea.
so I'd like
Oh,
to.
sorry, Jen, one quick sec. Austin, is it possible to put this up on the screen, the pictures that we had? Or, I don't know if everyone's got it.
The
but
planting
the-
plan
The
from
plan,
the-
the plan, 'cause I know we're all-
Can.
we're
Hold
sort of
on.
looking at the same time since we got lots
Well,
of designs. But again, so I think right now, just make sure, because we're on time, we're gonna talk about the plants, right? And then if there's any other, and that's good, because this is the
No,
list
but I
we
like
need to.
putting, I put it.
Yeah, no, and I
Osmanthus in
remember
the plan.
the mixed thing. I'm in favor of the mixed thing as opposed to monoculture, because if one dies and you replace it, then it's always small.
And it
so-
kills the other things.
Yeah, exactly, and if there's a disease, blah, 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 we have issues. So I like the mixed planting. I liked the array, a couple hollies for the evergreen, but then also maybe pull in the osmanthus, because they're also evergreen. I would lean towards the evergreen, but if the evergreens are good enough, then we can also throw in a couple of the deciduous ones just for some variety, or changes in height.
Right.
So I'm much in favor of replacing the monoculture screen with the mixed ones that you had suggested.
Well, we have a chance of actually hiding the thing.
Yeah, with the variation that we pull in some of the viburnum and the osmanthus. I was in favor, I mean, the viburnum and osmanthus
Keep going.
is cool. And,
Keep going.
yeah, there you go.
Generator.
Yeah, so
Um,
I had these, yeah, that's for evergreen, but then the next, that's the evergreen.
The next
of
slide is the mixed one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has some of the deciduous stuff in it as well.
All kinds of things. But
Yeah,
no,
so
that's a great
I'm in
one.
favor of a mix, I'm in favor of a mix of I'm in favor of the mixed screen and then add a little bit of whatever we actually pick from this
carry
list,
into
add something that we've
Those
used
two-
elsewhere.
Add and
Yeah.
I think whatever kind of viburnum it is, and the
Exactly, and you have viburnum on here,
I
and so
do.
it's really just throwing in
yeah.
the osmanthus to tie in.
Did you or Christina, Amos, tell us that we need to be off a little farther out than the plan shows from that generator?
Minimum 6 foot, but they actually like 8 foot.
That's fine.
That has got to be able to access, the doors open, they reach 6 foot out, so it's got to be a minimum 6 foot out. But the workers like an 8 foot, so the doors open, if they got to get to the other side, they're going to keep opening and closing.
Got it,
Yes, ma'am.
yes, okay.
I just text John, he said, yeah, it can be painted, but there's a strict rule, a list of rules that OSHA and EPA go by. So we can.
Well, let's just look at those, because sometimes that means you gotta use a brush and not a roller. I mean, you know, it's not that bad.
From them, I'll get them from them and,
Great, thank
let
you.
you know as well.
I mean, it can't, it's not the most, it's not like it's orange, so it could be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
it's
purple
not-
on it.
And once we put.
I'd love a purple one.
No, yeah, exactly. Once we put plants in front of it, it will calm it down.
Yeah,
some. Okay,
yeah.
so I can make that change and add those two things, and I'd still like to keep it, the mixed screening, keep a list of plants, because to our point, we may not be able to find all of these things.
Exactly,
But
so we'll
say
pick
it's
at the
gotta-
time.
Yeah, gotta be some American, well, not American, but native hollies, and gotta be the viburnum and the osmanthus that we're
Bring it
using on the
together.
other side.
I would have I would have three basic I mean, this is not that, I mean, even with an 8-foot perimeter, it's not that big a planting, so I'd have three basic, when we get to the time, we should pick 3 plants that are the basic screen, and then maybe 2 more that are the, sort of accent, like the hydrangeas, to fill in the gaps between the,
Well, I know
Or
that
to
we
mix
have
it
a
up.
lot of beautyberry around
yes,
for free.
yes. So that's always a good
If
one.
our budget is $198, we got that covered.
That's right.
Okay,
Alright.
okay, so that's the generator screen, so I will change this, this
Good.
will be a lot shorter when I'm done with it, right? So we'll just have, this is what we're gonna do. Okay, so then the next thing is slide 12, the butterfly garden thing, well, azaleas at the path.
So,
Maybe
yeah,
we should go back.
I was trying, when I was watching the meeting on replay, I was trying not to make the same face you were trying not to make when talking about daylilies and azaleas.
I wasn't doing a good job, but I don't
Yeah,
care.
both of them tend to, they're kind of like bananas. They look really good for about 30 seconds, and then the rest of the year, they look pretty trashy. So I do love the idea of the pollinator garden, and I'm down. Not that I'm the ultimate arbiter, but just because I wasn't here last month.
That's
Yeah, I'm in favor of that list, go, yay.
Okay.
And the reason I put these in there, most of these are confined. See, there's that Symbiotrichum right there.
Okay. And that ties nicely to the whole the monarch mayor project
Oh, yeah,
too, right?
exactly.
So
So
we're
this fits in
We're
with the-
consistent.
yes, we're
the-
doing, what we were trying to promote throughout the village, we now have
Right.
our own, so.
But actually, the butterfly garden there becomes the azaleas at the path. And then the only other comment I had was on the rain garden, and just to switch out the Solidago canadensis for rugosa, or
I am
whatever.
also very much in favor of that.
I battle canadensis and altissima all the time. I
Yeah.
love them, but they,
Well, no,
They should be
as you
paid
pointed
rent.
out last month, it would quickly become a Solidago planting.
unless we are out there ripping it up, which
Yeah,
is
which
what I
we
do.
don't, the whole point is to have minimal maintenance.
So we're going to
um,
Rugoso from Sard.
So, and
The
the
only-
other cool thing about rugoso is it's shorter, so
Mm.
it's more like here, where canadensis can be, I've got some
Like
that's
10
10 feet
foot.
tall.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
huge.
I know, it's
Is that the
crazy.
canna, what do they call it? Is that the same as those big no, that's not.
It's the big yellow stuff you see on the side of the.
Yeah, yeah.
It's probably altissima, actually, but they're similar.
Yeah, the bright yellow flowers and sort of a
And they're
cone-shaped inflorescence right now.
Fantastic
Yes.
pollinators.
And they got big leaves, right?
Yeah, well, they
no,
actually have
no.
pretty small,
Okay.
but they're just enormous plants, and they can live on this tabletop.
They're not the cannas that you're.
Not the can.
Oh,
I'm thinking-
Not the
I was
cannas with
thinking
the
cannas, okay,
big
no,
leaves,
sorry.
no,
This
they're
is
different.
Canadian goldenrod, which is a misnomer. It loves it here, and it's native here.
Got it.
Well, our redbuds are canadensis too. Anyway.
Okay, so rain
yeah,
garden.
so, the only other thing that I had to, I know, you're like, let's move. We could talk about plants all day. The only other thing that I had, that we talked about, in the past when we were looking at these plans is the only concern that I have, that we may want to add some of the tray plants that you were talking about, is a knee-high grass or lower.
So I have some
So-
carrots and some.
Well, no, not
jumpers.
in this planting, but I've mentioned this before, is that we have this event lawn,
Yeah.
and then we have mowed weed lawn or Bermuda grass lawn. What's the difference between the two? How are we going to know that we have the shape of this event lawn if we don't have something different on the outside of the lawn? And so for, I'm going to point to Christina's screen here.
Where are
The
y'all
one
at?
with the red boxes, the slide on here that has the red
It's the
boxes
first one.
showing the different.
Hold on.
It's the very first slide.
Technology's nice when it actually works, right?
It's working.
I don't know if these images are really high quality and that's why it's going slow.
But no, the whole thing is just high quality.
That's right, okay.
Everything Christina does is high quality.
Yeah.
Almost there.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, so here and here, these places against the Marvin Loop, this is mulch, this is under the trees, that's our pretty lawn. But then like what's it's differentiated over there by the trail, here by the rain garden. But we're not going to have any sense of lawn end and
This
this.
section right here.
All of that I would love to see as a non-mowed.
We can do.
Knee-high grass.
Native grasses.
Yeah, exactly, a native grass, sort of a monoculture kind of thing, but not mowed. Prairie,
But it could be muley and love grass and,
as long as it doesn't get too weedy looking by having the mix. If we can,
well, love grass is
Patch it.
really little.
yeah, but so
Looks
if we
like-
can,
Got it,
patchwork
I know
it
what
like the
Yep, I know what you mean.
rain garden,
Yeah.
and it could be very, very cheap, small plugs, let it grow in
Oh,
over
yeah, no,
time.
exactly, and you can get them.
But it's zero maintenance, zero thatching, zero fertilizer, everything just,
And because that's going to be very visible from the road too, is that the right, you're saying that? You want
that's why it needs to
yes,
be low,
yeah,
so it
right.
doesn't look like we just like let it go and got a weed patch, but,
What can we call that?
I have no idea.
Was that
I'm
New-
just kind of front,
Meadow grass?
yeah, but that area.
That's on
but-
Newtown, right? Is it on,
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say front facing
yeah, by the loop, right? It's kind of,
near loop and mulch. We'll just have, we'll come up with a name. Okay.
Frontage.
Frontage, add love grass, don't ask me to say that in Latin, and, muley.
okay.
And this is that little whirly gig I was talking about, is like, I feel like that's asking for the bench and the memorial, just because of the
Yes.
way it.
That's where you enter the loop
And-
and,
It's where you enter that from the main loop, and the way it zigzags like that, I feel like it's wanting to highlight something.
I'm gonna specify a couple of things in there, just because we have no idea if it's wet or dry. or-
Exactly. Once
because
again,
if it's
availability,
wet, we throw
soil.
juncus in there, and it'll be happy forever, and it'll be
Oh,
fine.
Juncus would be really
Yeah,
good.
it'll grow anywhere.
But
But muley really.
I don't think
hasn't-
it's gonna be wet enough for that, but I think muley
Oh, no,
grass
it'll
would
grow
be.
dry too, though.
All my Juncus dies and dries, but whatever, we can work that out later.
Yeah,
We have a
but I'll
huge
put-
agenda, but that
Yep,
was the
yep.
only
no,
thing.
good,
I'll add
good
that.
feedback, and thank you for noting that area out there too.
No, you're
Yeah,
right, I didn't know
it's-
that was an option, I would put some things in there, absolutely. But I love that.
I would
it'll
say
look
it's not
really
part
good.
of what they've provided, so it's gonna expand the budget a little bit. You
Not
know,
with
it's
her-
not
not with
something
her
that's
plugs.
already been priced out, but I really do feel like we need something there to differentiate the lawn.
Well, if we're
from
able
everything
to
else.
use plugs
The
for
plugs.
most
Yes.
of these
Yeah, that will
things,
be very,
the price is sweet, and the planting is so much easier. Oh, there's that generator. The planting is so much easier.
okay.
All right,
Especially
so-
that one
Yeah.
will definitely be plugs. Okay, we're good.
Well, thank you, Christina. You put a lot of time into
I
this,
will
and
fix
Jen,
this
your
back
input
up
too.
and make it
Yeah.
our recommendations and then send
Okay.
it back off to you.
No,
Well,
I think
and-
this was great. Thank you for
Yeah,
the. effort.
Deb and Michael, I mean,
Hey,
of course,
Chris,
I mean,
Cole,
different opinions too, not just from
Do you
me.
think you'll have that ready in the next couple days?
Yes,
Okay.
I have to.
We
or
will-
I'll forget to do it.
If you can have it to us,
When'd you say Thursday? You need it Thursday?
have this to me by tomorrow night. I can get it to council tomorrow night. I can get it in the council packets next week.
Okay, crickets say.
That's a comment.
They were answering for you,
That's one
so-
of my alarms.
Okay, okay.
I could use that for comedic effect. yeah.
That one doesn't make me angry. The dogs barking and the crickets. Anyway,
Okay.
sorry. Okay, yes.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say, just a summary, because obviously that we have different degrees of horticulture experience too, but from a kind of just aesthetics too, Michael and Deb, do you feel anything else that you're hearing or seeing that you want to add to it from?
It's one of the things that I truly do appreciate, and what I think we've been able to have on the PRG board over time is people like Bob and Christina and
So
Jennifer,
fortunate, yeah.
who, really help us with that, because whether it's the roundabouts, I mean, you look at our roundabouts when you go through other villages or towns and stuff like
Some of
that.
them don't have anything in
They're
them.
waiting for you.
Yeah, and I think, it really does have a great impact in terms of what it gives you as you go through the village. And, this being attached to Village Hall and kind of a showcase, because Marvin Eford Park is lovely, but unless you go in it, you don't see it. This,
You're not gonna miss it.
thousands of people are gonna see it as they go by each day, so, how it reflects on us, I think is important, and the value that, things that individuals that have this plant knowledge, I really rely on you, because I don't have that, and it's great to have.
Well, I appreciate that you all were willing to go down the pollinator path a little bit farther than we had planned originally, because I think that's going to make a huge difference. We'll be able to use this as an educational area as well. And hopefully help other people realize that they can do the same.
No, it's important to model the behavior the behavior, that sounds so condescending, but it's important to model what, we're sort of preaching.
Trying to promote.
And- Yeah, thank you for much more delicate words. And so, I think that's great. And then now the onus is on us to make it look like something people want to emulate.
Exactly.
So, no pressure. But anyway, I think, thank you for the opportunity to comment, but based on what I heard last week, and, I'm in total agreement with those two additional comments. So I think we're ready to recommend it and put it to bed.
You okay, Michael?
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
That's
So
easy.
if there are no other changes to the plan, we'll need a motion to recommend approval of the Village Hall Park landscaping plan as amended.
Okay, so moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Again, thank you all for the time and input, and we're all learning too, right? The rest of us are going to raise our. Okay. Moving on, now, that's it for unfinished business. Now, moving on to new business. The first item is adoption of our schedule for next year, 2026.
So I try to do these in October for all the boards, just because inevitably, some people need changes later, so it's better just to knock it out as early as possible. I'm opening a schedule on my screen just in case we need to make changes, but really,
I have one suggested change. We always end up canceling the July meeting because people are gone for July 4th.
we can remove the July meeting if you'd like.
We don't have to necessarily move it, but if we could move it to the second Tuesday in the month?
So we definitely can do that. The only reason I didn't on this draft was just because of the way the days line up this time. This time, the 4th is on a Saturday, so you're either going into that weekend or coming off of that weekend.
Right, and people may be here, it's just, I feel like even if, because 4th of July is on the weekend, I think businesses may be taking the Monday off, in which case then everybody's just coming back from trips. I mean, everybody just seems to take their summer trip at that point, and we always end up canceling the meeting. So,
I will leave that for you guys to decide. Do you want to move it to the next week? Do you want to remove the July meeting altogether? Totally up to you. As far as what will be going on around that time next year, we're already after a lot of big events.
Yeah, let's move it to the next week, and then, as we get closer to it, we'll figure out whether we have an
yeah,
agenda.
if we don't have anything, if we don't
Right.
have any
Right, 'cause
business,
then you go
then
on,
we could
yeah.
cancel it, but,
Exactly.
Okay.
So I am going to make
All
a
right,
note
and
there.
then Austin, just a question even for this coming next November, well, our November meeting's on Election Day? That's not any issue, right? As far
No,
as
we've
like-
always held,
Okay,
this,
okay,
this
okay.
meeting has always been on election days.
Then it will be again, so, okay. so
It's a good reminder.
Okay, and then we have our other one on December 1st, which is right after the Thanksgiving weekend, so. I
Yeah,
know I
you've
will
got
be
your,
absent
you've
for
got your,
Would you like to, should we move the December
I was,
one?
I was just gonna say, I'll be absent on December 1st that week, so I could,
let me go.
Because Thanksgiving's coming.
Yeah, I don't know that we want to push it further, because then again, you may be getting past what we normally do for the Christmas.
It'll be after. If you push it, it will be after the tree lighting.
Yeah, because the tree lighting will be the fifth.
yeah, I mean, that's, I know.
Unless y'all want to push the tree lighting back to the second weekend in December. That's the way we used to do it. You guys moved it forward to the first weekend 2 years ago.
Just because of how calendars fell.
So it's really whatever you guys prefer. We can push both the meeting and the event back a week. I don't think it's the end of the world.
Does the event have to happen after the meeting, or can we just?
It's just less,
plan
the board won't be able to discuss it in December. That would be
Yeah,
the
but
only
then
thing.
If we just do it next month,
We could discuss it in November?
yeah.
I will leave that to you guys to decide.
I think we'll be fine with it.
Okay,
I mean,
with the
and then we may just cancel December.
December's
But
meeting,
leave it
yes.
as is, and we can decide. what-
Do you want to keep the tree lighting next year on the first Saturday, or want to consider going back to the second Saturday?
No, I didn't know that was an
Yeah,
option.
I
I looked to
don't
see what other
Tyler,
events
I
are
mean,
going
yeah,
on.
Tyler, do you have a?
I think one of the other reasons that we changed it is, didn't we have a Santa booking issue?
I think that was,
Conflicted with.
do you remember
Waxhaw?
this? We've swapped Santas. We've been Santa shopping a lot of years because we've had some issues with some Santas, but I don't think it, I don't remember the issue being Santa necessarily. I think it might have been Waxhaw's event was on the same day.
That's what I was wondering.
I don't know for sure though. I honestly don't know. Obviously, we have plenty of time to discuss the tree lighting next year. But for this, as far as the meeting schedule goes, the one change that I've noted is moving July to the next week and keeping all the other dates the same. Does anyone else have any other thoughts?
I'm sorry,
Any other thoughts?
not for next year, no, that was just, and I
Yeah.
kind of jumped ahead with this year, or back, whatever you want to call it. All right.
So tree lighting currently is scheduled for the 6th then?
That, the 6th, this
This
year,
year.
yes.
Yeah, this year. And then the other question that I have just sort of procedurally is, well, I guess we can keep, does our meeting have to be on a Tuesday? If we did try to move the December one?
Not necessarily. Are you talking about moving, are you talking about moving the one this year?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because we're on next year's schedule.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, because I was making the
Oh,
comment.
that's true, yeah, this is the next,
yeah,
this is December
year, yeah,
26th.
Yes.
This year I cannot make the December meeting, so I was just asking if that was going to be an issue because it's right after Thanksgiving, but it may not be.
No, thank you for reminding me that, because I was looking at this calendar going, the 1st is on a Monday, what is going on here?
We definitely can talk about the December meeting this year, but I want to get through the schedule
Sorry.
really
about
quick
that. Okay,
first.
Okay, so this schedule is,
If you guys are good with this, I would like a motion to adopt the schedule as
Well,
amended.
just one other thing that I would ask is just make sure, we do these during the day, not
Yes.
in the evenings. And, everybody seems to have worked for, the boards that we've had in the past, and everybody's still good with that.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking about a wholesale change, it was just if there was a conflict in December because of the way, Thanksgiving falls right before the meeting, then we could push off to a Thursday rather than the whole next week
Yeah.
if we still wanted to be before an event. But given that that's the 2026 December, whatever.
Y'all can always change that date down the road too. If you
Yeah,
know,
in
if you
November or
in
something.
6 months, I have surgery in December, or I'll be on a trip, and there's not enough board members available, we can always change that date.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so yeah, I'm, other than looking ahead to that July one.
All right, so I'm going to update that motion in your packets just to say amended. So to adopt the 2026 PRG board meeting schedule as amended.
Okay, make a motion to approve. All in favor?
Before we move on, this December, any issues? I will be out of the office that day. I have a medical procedure, so you will not have me taking minutes. I don't know if there will be a staff member available, so I personally would like to ask that we either
Me too.
preemptively cancel that meeting or move it.
Yeah, and I will be out that week too, so we could potentially, I mean, I feel like that's, I mean, if we're going to continue it, could we do it the 8th? Is that a possibility to move it out a week? I know it's after the event.
You mean the 9th?
The 9th.
The one thing that I will
Here, am I
also
looking at the
say,
wrong year? Actually, I'm looking at the wrong year
I
too.
know, right?
Okay,
I
yes,
fast-forwarded
whatever
too.
that, yes, the following week. Go ahead. John.
the one thing that I'll also say is, of course, we've got an election going on too, so, you know, based upon the outcome of that, you know, typically, there's not a lot of stuff that,
We've canceled a lot of December meetings in the
Okay.
past for boards.
Yeah.
Planning board's December meeting gets canceled ever since Hunter's been here, so. So totally up to you guys. For the tree lighting, for the most part, runs on auto. Tyler's already done a lot of the prep work for it, so.
Okay. So keep it as is, and, well, I guess we're canceled, are we?
We can
proposing to
we can
cancel it?
change the schedule now just to strike it if we're good with that. Because I know for a fact I won't be here that day.
I see, you
And I will not
won't
be
be
here.
here, you won't be here,
Right.
so the real question is, you know, do you feel like we should have one the following Tuesday, or just skip it all
Right.
together?
As you said, I think a lot of the decisions we were doing was a lot of this planning around the kind of time sensitive for the approvals of the garden. So I feel
Yeah.
like if we can focus next November's meeting on anything towards end of year, let's continue
Let's
to
just
just do that.
do that. We'll plan, November is going to cover the.
The
beginning of
events
year.
going through the end of the year. Okay.
So if I could get one more motion then to cancel the December PRG meeting.
Okay, make a motion to cancel, or so moved, to cancel the December 2025 meeting.
Yes, let's get the year right.
Yes.
Thank you for that, good point.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed.
That's our first Christmas present.
Oh.
Holiday present.
December 2nd is canceled.
You're free.
Okay.
So we will make that change and republish your schedule, so we are good, you're good to move on.
All right, thank you. The next item up, and we have a couple items here, and I'm going to also ask John to weigh in, because some of these were also discussed at the last council meeting. A lot of these tied to our greenways and some activity that's been raised as awareness to the village staff. First one is around the removal or consideration of keeping, on our website, we have our trail maps, all of the greenways that are existing today in Marvin, including some that are conceptual as far as easements or work that's being planned, you know, such as the Marvin Loop Phase 1, or Phase 2 and Phase 3. Some feedback was given to the village staff to potentially remove the conceptual idea or off the map, off of our general plan that's on the website. And you know, the discussion that took place at council, and we've also had this before, is folks need to be aware of what potentially is out there as far as, the direction of the village for greenways, and also, again, for folks moving into the area, what the layout looks like. And so there's been some discussion, and I think that's kind of the position from council, was to continue to keep the availability of those greenway maps available on the site, because that's the place that anyone can access. Just to kind of give some other examples, is within Mecklenburg County, they have a tremendous greenway system, and they always will put their conceptual maps out there. They'll put statuses of future greenways, and the Carolina Thread Trail does that as well. I think it's just a common practice, and Hunter, you may be able to weigh in too, to allow folks to see development of greenways and where they're going.
yeah, I think also, you know, one of the things that we've heard from residents over the years is that typically there's more acrimony, you know, if you're not telling somebody something, you know? And all of a sudden, you know, a resident is coming to you and saying, well, I never knew that was going to be there, you know? So our position on this is very important from the standpoint, and one of the things that we've always tried to do is to be very upfront with what our conceptual map. Now, the key word there is conceptual, you know? There's 50 different reasons why one particular portion of a trail may or may not ever happen. It could be easements, it could be cost, it could be safety, it could be anything. But what we've typically always done is we've taken a position with that conceptual map that we don't like to take things off it, right? Because Marvin, we're trying to plan not just for the next 2 years, not just for the 5 years, but we have to be respectful of what Marvin may look like in 50 years, you know, and what, you know, the opportunities and the needs are going to be then, you know? And you may have, you know, a bunch of folks that want a trail, but we've always done everything as far as easements voluntarily. We don't do eminent domain or anything like that, right? So, you know, you may have one resident that doesn't want it, but is that person going to be here 50 years from now? In all likelihood, not. It could be a totally different neighbor, you know? So we don't like to remove things from the conceptual map, because we want to make sure that anybody at least has that access to know what it is that's out there and what we're planning. And that's kind of been, and I think that's still important to do. Now, whether we want to look at how we look at that map in terms of how it's detailed or how it's labeled, I think that's another conversation. And if there are some improvements that can be made there, I would say to staff and so forth, because they understand the technology behind it, what some of our options might be, because, we're not going to have a website redesigned so we can just do that. We'd want to know what we can do within the parameters we have now to make sure that, we can provide more or less level of detail.
And yeah, and Christina did email us over the weekend or Friday regarding that, and we looked at the Carolina Thread Trail and some others, and I think we do have the capability on our current, and we're talking about the conceptual map. When you go to our Greenway page, that's it's basically just a Google map type thing that we internally kind of map and put the description on. There's definitely ways that we can put more information on there regarding, current status, or just some history of potentially when certain trails were constructed, or when they're planned for construction, just to make sure that information's being conveyed. On that conceptual map, it's only ones that either have been constructed and ones that are either funded or, as previously discussed, easements have been obtained and there has been potential then further planning and steps taken. It doesn't show, the greater conceptual mapping that's in the master plan. Obviously, that's a standalone map. That's an adopted plan that has to go through its own whole process that we're going to be doing here shortly over the next couple of months to update. But yeah, it's really just more for information for our residents, as well as for anybody that's traveling to Marvin that wants to use our trail system. So.
That's a good point, Hunter. And so I think the distinction, as you said, of these easements we've acquired. So that way, and I think as John mentioned, being really clear, as it is on the website, what exactly this means. It's, future plan. We don't just, it's not just out there for interpretation. And I think I've spent some more time now on that interactive map, but I would recommend if anyone hasn't, the detail is great. I can see that, what you can put in there is the status, the type of trail surface, the distance, and as you talked about, I think some history is good to put too. So this is a 10-year-old trail, or this is something that's new coming soon. So those are good pieces of information. We can continue to update on that interactive map. And I think it's pretty standard, again, if you use any of the greenways in the Charlotte area, they have similar types of information presented, so it kind of keeps us in line with that.
Just wanted to make you aware, some of the descriptive language that you see on some of the trails Bob Ninenkamp composed, he actually went out and measured the trails and talked about the elevation and everything.
Okay.
That's not something that I particularly know how to do. So if anyone...
Right?
If anyone wants to get Bob to go measure all the trails again, or do some of the newer ones, you can.
And could that be something the PR&G could assist with? I mean, or get some volunteers in the community to help with some of that, again, if we have to do some elevation or descriptions, maybe there's groups we could get to help.
I was about to say, for lengthwise, we should be able to pull all that from the contracts when they were constructed. But if there's a more detailed description, for example, like the trail at the park with how we, how the Parks and Rec staff built the stand, or for the tree that was growing across the path. If we want to put random highlights for those trails in those areas, that's where I think PR&G and any other volunteers can definitely potentially tag in, and we can add that into that description, because that could be another kind of cool little thing, just to add, so when people are checking it out, they can make sure to be looking for that, or something along those lines.
Or if we eventually have maybe an adopted trail, if you have a volunteer group that's going to own a trail, we could identify them on the agreement. But anyway, I think the main discussion was the fact that we want to discuss here the recommendation to continue to keep the conceptual, as Hunter described, easements that we've acquired, and the details, and continue to build on these, the interactive trail map that we have.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other discussion? Recommend, yeah, do we need to make a motion, John, or that, or?
To recommend retaining the conceptual map on the village's website.
Okay. Make a motion to move? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. And then, John, you'll take that back to council then, since that was a discussion point there?
Yep.
Okay. Great. The next item up on the agenda was some discussions around the trail scavenger hunt, and I know that was something that we were very successful with this past summer. Tyler had led that, and there's some plans to continue that process. Just kind of awareness and, again, communication that the village received from a resident or two about concern about safety or activity of using the trails for a scavenger hunt. So I just, again, I think everything we've heard Tyler describe has really been, well, any age individual can use it, but it's just as folks utilize the trail, its intent was to get people out and about, and really just as all of our greenways are, they're open to the public to access. So want to just hear if there's any concerns from the board here about the use of the trails for a scavenger hunt, any concerns we want to do to influence or change the activity?
No, we had a lot of really good feedback from it. Had a lot of younger kids, and even we had a lot of teenagers come in, and our prizes kind of reflected. We had stuff for pretty much everybody, and it was really good to see kids. I mean, we had kids from there was 7-year-olds came in with their dads that they had, gotten out and walked together, which is great to see. And then there was, groups of 4 and 5, like 14 or 16-year-olds coming in, getting stuff. So I think it was definitely a good thing, kind of wellness, health, people seeing our green spaces that live here. So I think it was definitely beneficial.
I would actually even try to market it to adults too.
Mm.
I mean, they can find acorns.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so just to clarify, what we're doing with the scavenger hunt is they're like little owl keychains, and they're
Yeah.
hung adjacent to the trail, not off the trail. They're
No,
adjacent to the trail.
you
such
do
that-
not have to leave the trail.
Yeah, you're on the
Okay.
trail.
You are
and you
on
find
the
their thing.
trail.
Yes.
They're either on the ground, perched on a rock. If there's an elevated something, they're just, you never have to take a step off of the trail.
20 feet in the air.
Nope.
So what we're doing is we're incentivizing go out and walk and get in nature because you might win a prize, and we're also incentivizing observation and looking at our surroundings. But these are also like an ongoing thing. It's not like, I mean, I think maybe sort of if residents here, there's a scavenger hunt, we have sort of a mental image of a bunch of teenagers with a list knocking on doors or being invasive or going out in like a big group, but this isn't a group activity.
That's good to.
No,
This is a singular,
it was,
anytime any individual is out. So it's not like there's, at 10 o'clock, the whole trail system's going to be mobbed with people, running off into the woods trying to collect things.
That's the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I'm concerned that maybe,
There's a distinction.
is that I just wanted to clarify, because if somebody has sort of an idea of a scavenger hunt from their teen years, maybe
There's a
that
difference.
conjures up a very shocking image that we really wouldn't want on our trails. I mean, we do have some group activities on trails, if we had that stroller mom, the thing where we were trying to get,
We have a let me run group running.
or the running
Right.
groups or something like that. So there are organized group activities on the trails already, but just sort of anyway, so clarified, it's an individual,
Well,
kind
then
of,
and maybe there's
low
some good
impact
words for
kind
the
of
next time.
thing
The
that-
time we market it, we say like individual, or however you had some.
I
you
think,
had some
I
good
think it's
words.
already, I mean, I
out
think it's
there.
already
It's
fine.
It's an ongoing,
Yes.
well, I guess you could do it anytime.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, or do you have some schedules, Tyler? Yeah, what do you have?
yeah, so we pretty much just ran it for a month last time. We pretty much just stopped it when school started. We just ran it, trying to get the kids out before school got back in. Thinking about busting it out again for the month of December for Christmas break. There's gonna be more people at home,
You actually see the owls better.
Yep, and then it'll be popping, and it's never miserably cold here or anything, so it's not like people aren't gonna be out, and
I think that's good to have some cadence so folks look forward to it, and it's not,
Yeah.
it's something that they're aware of. Okay. So with that discussion, I don't think there's anything as far as a movement. It's just wanted to get feedback, and I think that's helpful for Tyler too, that knows that there's support around this activity and its benefits. All right, next item up, and this is again an item we had talked about months ago related to discussions of motorized vehicles on our trails and hours of operations. Again, this was some messaging that went back to the village staff about activity, in particular around the preserve trail, of some electronic e-bikes back there, and then concerns about activity on the trails after hours. So I think
We discussed that in our joint meeting with council a couple
that
months
was
ago.
a very extensive one, and I know,
Yeah.
John, you want to
Yeah,
summarize.
it did come up again, and, you know, this is something that we could also speak about in, you know, my report on village council, because many of the issues that you'll see here in the new business are things that we did discuss in our most recent work session. Now, the main impotence for this one that came up again, because we did address this a number of months ago, but one particular resident encountered what he saw was a pickup truck that was kind of off a roundabout that is here near the Preserve Trail. Took a photo of it. Unfortunately, the photo didn't get the license plate or anything like that, so the truck was kind of unidentifiable. But it essentially, you know, depicted something that, I don't know if it was on the trail itself, but it was clearly off, you know, the end of the cul-de-sac. Now, what we don't know is, was it like a public utility truck, you know, as workers tend to do, whether they're electrical, you know, sewer easements, different things like that. You know, I believe he did contact law enforcement, so they did what they could to investigate it, but without having taken the picture of either the person or the license plate, there's nothing identifiable. So that same resident also has expressed some concerns in the past about when we originally had those conversations about e-bikes or, you know, motorbikes or things like that. Now, I know this is mainly in the preserve area, you know, and the preserve trail that we've had these complaints. Now, I know, Jen, you live kind of at one end of it, and I believe we even spoke, and this was maybe a year ago or so, that there were some concerns that somebody had actual motorbikes or something like that, and we looked to see if they may have entered from over that way or somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple of isolated incidents like the truck, or there was one isolated incident of you know, a motorcycle, but now that the e-bikes are gaining in popularity, I can attest that I have seen them go by on the Marvin Creek's portion of their trail, but that's up to them to regulate, because
That's the
we don't,
sidewalk area,
yeah,
right?
that's the concrete one.
So that's on the Marvin Creek.
And that's on the Marvin Creek side. On the
Yeah.
concrete one, I see them zipping, you know, from where I am at the end of Saddle, I can see, you know, what's going by there, and I'm seeing a lot of e-bike activity on that concrete trail, because of course, it's concrete. And so they
but that's not
probably, those
something-
kids, and that's not our
Yeah.
province, so, but if they're doing that there, you know, if in that neighborhood, they're, you know, zipping around from the cul-de-sac onto the concrete trail and back on, and like,
Yeah.
isn't this fun? I imagine that those same kids, I mean, you can get a long way on an e-bike, are probably zipping around to where they can access the preserve trail. Now, that one is not a hard surface,
Yeah,
but they don't have any idea who owns what,
yeah.
and that it's legal here, maybe. I mean, that's up to Marvin Creek to police whether they want the e-bikes or not. But if it's okay there, why isn't it okay here? And so I think one thing we discussed in the joint meeting, and I don't know if council has an opinion on this now, but if we're going to say on our trails that there are no e-bikes, I think there should be signage.
I think we did, and
I mean, I believe we came down that we
It's on
shouldn't
our
have
site,
e-bikes because
but
they're
yeah,
dangerous
but we only
with new
posted it on our
pedestrians.
site. We didn't talk about the signs, but I think what Jen is saying is now, what, 6 months later, we are seeing a higher prevalence of it, even on the Marvin Loop, where it's not, you know,
Yeah.
allowed either. Do we need to consider putting some signage up, like you said, so folks are aware of where it's
Well, I
not?
was at the joint meeting, I advocated for signs, but there was some pushback because, you know, and I think I even referenced, you know, we all know the song, signs, you know, everywhere there's signs. And I get that, but it's kind of like saying, oh, we have a speed limit, but we're not going to post it.
well,
You know,
that's something that's important too, and part of this is an educational thing. I actually saw where, these were comments about Waxhaw and some of Waxhaw's trails and things like that. But what a lot of parents don't know is that if you buy an e-bike, and that e-bike has the ability to go greater than 20 miles an hour, which many of them do,
Yep.
and a parent doesn't know if it does or it doesn't necessarily when they buy it. But if they do, then the driver of that e-bike has to be licensed from a law enforcement perspective.
Whether you drive at 20 miles an hour, 21 miles an hour or not, right?
Correct.
It's
Because it has
able
the
to,
ability,
which makes
Correct,
sense.
you know? So I think that's something that I think as these things become more prevalent, we need to make sure is out there in our community because, you know, anecdotally, I've seen other issues, not necessarily on trails, but even, you know, out on streets where some of these kids are actually riding them down subdivision roads and things like
Well, they're
that.
coming out the trail and up saddle and heading to Marvin at a high rate of speed, and I'm waiting for one of them to just leap out into Marvin Road into traffic.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, I think we were pretty clear, you know, that we, at least at this point, weren't interested in entertaining e-bikes or things like that on our trails, and that's the
Well,
position
especially
we're
our
at now.
natural surface ones, they're not suited to it, and when you're.
And you have blind corners too.
You have blind corners, and if
Yeah.
you're out there walking dogs and you've got leashes, I mean, you've
Yeah.
just now created a tightrope across, you know, or the dogs may get startled and run into the, I mean, there's just,
Yeah.
our trails are not designed for that. We could have trails that are designed for that.
Yeah, so I
Our
guess
current
the
one's cool.
question is then, you know, the signage, you know, and whether we just need to make it apparent that this is not to be done by enforcement, or we start putting signs at the heads of every
Trailheads
single
or-
trail, and it really isn't necessarily picking and choosing, it's really all of them, you know? So that's both an expense and an aesthetic thing that we need to consider, but do we want to go that route? Because we have the ordinance in place right now that says no e-bikes on trails.
The problem with using enforcement to do it is that it only targets whoever gets caught, and it's an inefficient use of law enforcement to keep coming out and having to respond, and by then the kids are gone.
They are doing some foot preventative patrols.
Are they?
Not many, they're not doing that many, they're doing a few a month, but they are doing it more.
I mean, because if we can get the word out, if, you know, you know, stop this kid or that kid or whatever, and then that kid says, oh, you know, I mean, eventually word will get out amongst the kids, but if the parents, it's just a matter of notice.
One point to note, the reason this was on your agenda was the resident of the preserve who caught the picture of the truck requested that we install bollards and cameras. The council had discussed this at their last meeting. They agreed they were not going to install bollards because it could inhibit a utility truck from accessing the site if they need to, but they did agree to install a trail camera, a couple trail cameras. Those have already been
Well, and
purchased.
we may move them around.
Right.
You know,
They've already been
because-
they've been purchased, and Matthew is already ordering signs to say this trail is under video surveillance.
Okay. So if you have a sign that says it's under video surveillance, then is it appropriate then to put on that sign also?
No e-bikes.
No e-bikes. I think there is some, again, I just feel like it's changed a lot even just in the last 6 months. And just being I've been on the Greenway trails up in Mecklenburg a lot more. They do have discrete signs that say no electric bikes. I feel also that it's easier to, even if you are not enforcing from law, as a pedestrian, if a kid is riding by on an e-bike and you say you can't ride it, there's nothing to point to. But if we can say there's a sign back there, I think individually we can start to help communicate that because you can point to a sign. The child's not going to look on a website and.
Nobody's going to look on a website.
Right.
Also, let me add, a couple months ago, I don't know what the outcome of it was, because at that time, it goes to my superior. We got a call one Monday morning that somebody heard dirt bikes on the trail, over the weekend. So we went, walked the trail, and we found off of T Olive, we found dirt bike tracks. It wasn't the smooth tires like the e-bikes, it was actually mud grip tires for dirt bike. And off of T Olive, there was a retention pond, and there's a house, and they've got a little jump set up where they jump it and then go on the trail. Now, where they're accessing the trail at from that point is not on the trailheads. So
Right.
the signage, you know, would be beneficial at the trailheads, but what I was getting at, I guess it could be some throughout the trail somewhere as well. Now, when they can't say, well, I didn't see it, then they come in the entrance.
Yeah, I think, I think, no, that's an excellent point, but I mean, personally, my impression on that is that one's probably a good candidate for enforcement, because building a jump and jumping onto the trail is kind of sort of taking that to the next level, and then maybe if we have the signs dispersed too thoroughly, now we've gotten into that place where we're over-signing. But I do think that just as a basic courtesy to facilitate this policy, people are not, like you just said, are not getting on the website to check, like, oh, are e-bikes okay? You know? So, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so you said there's a sign that says about like surveillance on there?
Well, no, we're saying when
No,
we put
that-
the cameras on the trails, we will put that.
We're actually got a meeting today to go and check out where they're gonna be put at, but they're on my list.
Wait, so where will we put the cameras on the trail, like on trees or?
Yes, they'll be down in the trees.
Yeah, they're like temporary
That makes
cameras,
sense.
like game cameras.
Yeah, because I think the preserve already has like a sign that says in surveillance. But,
Yeah, the signs that I ordered let you know that, there's video and audio surveillance, and if you walk on it, you're agreeing to be video and audio recorded.
Audio even, wow. Audio? But yeah, as far as, yeah, I'm an advocate for at least some minimal signage at trailheads. And then if that proves insufficient, dirt bike, whatever, you know, we could expand, if we find particular problem areas where people are really entering, it's not officially a trailhead, we could add it near there, but, I don't know.
So I'm a resident of the preserve as well, and I think the e-bikes on the actual, like, unpaved trails have definitely lessened a lot. But I think most people are turning towards, like, that loop trail in front of the elementary school because it is paved and it is safer. But I think it brings the question of if we're enforcing all these areas where they can't ride it, where can they ride it? And can we make a place for them that's safer for them to ride these kind of vehicles? Because they are gaining popularity and parents are going to buy them for their kids. When I was a kid, everyone had one of those mini cars that they drove around in the neighborhood, but they didn't go 20 miles an hour.
Right.
So, you know, what can we do for them?
Well, and I think that's definitely something that I think we had questioned in the survey. So everybody do your survey. If you're watching, please do the survey. You know, what do you want your trails designed for? And I think that, you know, our natural surface trails that are, you know, curvy and very hidden are not suited to that. But absolutely, if we can find a place and this is what people want to use them for, then, I mean, that's the goal here, is to serve what people are doing. And if the way people are using trails is shifting, then, you know, our target shifts. But for right now, until we have that.
Right, we may not have even the land space to do that type of.
Yeah, I mean, unless
Right,
people are
right,
willing to
right.
grant the easements to allow people to do that, we can't, I mean, at this point, we're kind of hamstrung of doing any new trail for any purpose, but given the ones that we have, if our policy is if council's policy was no e-bikes, I'm an advocate for at least putting up a sign on the trailhead to do that, to facilitate.
Any more signage will need council approval. I don't think that's something we're ready to do right now because we've not even installed the last signs yet. But definitely, definitely, I'm sure we'll hear more. If there's future instances, we'll hear about them. We can revisit this topic later and choose more signage if we need to.
Have we posted in the newsletter or on social media that no e-bikes? I mean, like
Previously.
We did a long time ago.
Maybe that's one of those things you just do every couple of months.
We can add it in the rotation. We are at the point where we are shrinking the newsletter because
Well, I mean, just a
Yes.
social media post, you know, say,
Yeah.
just a reminder.
we definitely
turn
can.
off the lights.
Or just a reminder about, hey, that licensing thing, did you know?
Well,
And that is a
and
really
that's,
good-
well,
that's
and
a
that's
good
what I
good
saw
knowledge.
Waxhaw,
That's a good way of doing it.
that's what I saw
Educational, yes.
Waxhaw did. And I think I'll get a copy of that because it was essentially like a one-page sheet that said, did you know, blah, blah, you
That's
know.
kind of a
And part of
public
it's
service
inform,
announcement.
correct, because a lot of parents don't even know this when they're buying these e-bikes. And, you know, it may also, you know, affect what model you end up getting your kid because, you know, you don't want them to run afoul of, you know. And the other thing I guess we don't know, and that comes into this eventually, is, you know, what are liability concerns and so forth? Because even if we say we're going to allow e-bikes on just these areas, is an e-bike legally treated the same or different than any regular bike? You know, because if we allow regular bikes on trails or on certain trails that are cement, and we do, I believe, we don't have any prohibition on regular bikes at this point. You know, my thing would be, well, are certain e-bikes treated the same legally as any sort of regular bike or not.
Yeah, that would
you know?
take, so that we're consistent with other,
Yeah.
enforcement efforts. I mean, I think intellectually, the distinction is pretty obvious. One is human-powered and quiet, the other one is engine-powered and faster and noisier.
Well, I don't know that the
But
e-bikes
legally,
are
yeah,
any
there's-
noisier,
Yeah,
you know?
but in some e-bikes, I mean, you don't have to have it on high speed.
And
you just
some
have
of
it-
them
right.
are
Yeah, you
both.
just- right.
You know, they've got e-bikes that are also regular
Full
bikes.
power
So,
assist,
you know,
yeah.
there's a lot that kind of goes into that. But it'd be interesting to know if we were to consider allowing e-bikes anywhere, what are the liabilities that may come with that as well? Are they any different than a regular biker?
Yeah. No?
So I think it sounds like a good idea would be to do that educational piece that you've got, and then
Yeah,
kind of
I'll
reinforce
find
on
that.
there that then we do not allow e-bikes on our trails after we put that in that social media blast that we're gonna do.
Just send it to me and we'll
Yeah.
try to get it in the schedule. We have a lot going out the next few months, and we're trying to claw it back already, so just keeping you aware.
Okay.
Yep.
And at this point, then, I think Jenna heard you say, and I think we kind of shared some of that, of thoughts around putting some signage up, but we're not ready to make that recommendation yet, or does PR&G want to make a recommendation? Or, I know, like you said, it'd have to go back to council, but I think we're still hearing more concern about the awareness around how that's getting out there.
Well, I ran my mouth about my opinion, but I don't know if
But we
everybody
can
else
make
shares
a
it.
recommendation,
Yeah,
I mean, it's on
yes.
the board.
Well, I just don't know if everybody else
Yes.
shares my opinion.
Right.
I went, no.
No, you've meant, and I concur on having some signage that will allow folks on any of the trails to know that the electric bikes are not there. Just, I've seen too much of activity where you can't point to anything, but that's my.
Well, I agree
Well,
with
the
sign.
one thing that I'd also say is we need to be careful about being, if you say just electric bikes, right? Well, then what about, then what about golf carts, you know?
Well,
so
those are
we
already
pick-
prohibited too, so we could just say
Correct.
It just
motorized
says
vehicles.
motorized
Right.
vehicles.
But then your
Motorized, yeah.
sign's getting bigger and bigger.
Well, just motorized.
Just
right?
no motorized vehicles, and then people who have motorized wheelchairs probably know that they're already an exception to that, because
Yeah.
you already know. But, if you use one, you know.
Yeah.
But just no motorized vehicles.
And that's all it says in the greenways.
And there also, I don't know what kind of backlash there would be from it, but keep in mind that our guys take the mule mowers and stuff to
Yeah.
maintain the trail.
Yeah.
I think there's already there's already a disclaimer that we're allowed to use it, or law enforcement, or, yeah.
Yeah,
So
if we
we're
put a
covered on
reference to an ordinance, then this is just sort of your basic notice, and if you want to see the details, you need to go look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, do you have some thoughts on that? I mean, and you've been on the trails and you're out in the
I
community.
haven't really seen any vehicles like that on the trails, so
Okay.
And you live in the preserve, right? Do you live near where the trail is, or?
I live on the trail, yeah.
Oh, you live on the trail, okay. Kind of toward the ends of it, or deeper in?
Kind of near the beginning.
Okay.
Well, my Pulumi had said that, maybe you're decreasing on the natural surface part.
I
just
live
sort of-
against the trail too, just like Michael on Flower and Peach, and it really is like the natural part, people have done it a lot less because it is uneven, but if it's paved,
If it's
I
paved,
feel like people
yeah.
assume it's more free game if it is paved,
So if we do have a consensus, I think a recommendation would be.
So I have drafted a motion for you guys. If you do want to do this, we'll let council know. The thing is, if you install this here and you want to prohibit it on all natural surface trails, that's a lot more signs to buy that we don't have that budgeted. So we will have to do probably a budget amendment for that, if council approves.
Not just natural surfaces, because we're also assuming the Marvin Loop does not have electric bikes either, correct? The signage would be on the,
I can't speak to that.
Well, currently, non-motorized vehicles are all of our trails.
yeah, so I think, so I'm
So
saying,
that's
we don't want to say,
Marvin
so
Loop
yes.
and the other,
So just say
you
all
know?
trail, all trails and
All
instead of
village,
natural
all
trails.
village trails.
And if we change the ordinance or we change our policy, whatever, then, we'll have to figure out where we want the signs. But at least for the internal trails right now, it sounds like the biggest problem is to
Motorized.
give notice there.
So a motion to recommend installing signs prohibiting motor vehicles on all village trails to include the ordinance section.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Thank you, okay. All right. Thank you for Okay, we've got a lot of items. Last one on the new business, and this is going to go to Tyler, about some requests about doing some special events at the Eford Park.
Yeah, this came up, I've been contacted a few times over the past couple years about large-scale rentals of, whether it be concerts, 5K races, stuff like that at Marvin Eford Park. We've always treated it as if it's just like a barn rental. Usually, we've never done anything very massive out there. So I was approached by a concert company that's does travel in Nashville, country music, wanted to come down and do a concert, but it would require them pretty much to take up the whole park. And basically, I'm just telling you all of this. I brought it up to council last week, see if it was something that we wanted to discuss. Currently, I have our village attorney. He has been kind of reviewing it, going over it. He hasn't really gotten the opportunity to give a full direct of what he thinks about it. The last conversation him and I had was kind of more pertaining to the size of the park and maybe keeping it to where if you rent the barn, it's exclusive. Because right now when you rent the barn, you have exclusive rights to the barn. But it's hard because of there's public space and stuff is kind of where he's getting at. I think he wants to take a little more time to look it over and maybe even review and discuss with others on what they think. But I just wanted to bring it up, see what y'all thought, but at the same time, I'm also kind of waiting on the attorney opinion.
And it,
It seems like for a concert kind of venue, you don't have parking for that. What were they gonna do for that,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's the same deal as like what we have, and if we ever even went in this direction, there would have to be like a pretty intensive list about having off-duty officers. You have to have this insurance. It'd be a fairly big to-do, but it's just something that has come up more than once, I guess, in my tenure. So something that popped up.
I will add, so under the old ordinance, before the MDO was adopted, there was specific language in there regarding temporary use permits, basically requiring a special use permit for events being held at the barn/park over 100 people. Roundabout way of doing it. That's not exactly how I do it, because special use permits quasi-judicial. We won't even have to go there, but we could incorporate this in from a zoning standpoint if it's something that the village is open to. For example, right now in Article, I think it's 15, temporary uses and structures, we already do have for events that are over 100 people. We could add specific regulations that if it's on public property, and pretty much then put that on staff review to the things we're saying, off-duty officers, a traffic control plan, certain aspects of that. If that is something, like I said, if PR&G as well as the council is open to potentially renting out the whole park. I mean, then that comes the revenue side of the rental part too. I mean, I think there is a lot of factors, but I think there is a way that we could also do this from a zoning standpoint if need be.
This is on your agenda really as an FYI, because discussions are ongoing with the attorney. We really just want to make sure, if you guys hate this just in general, this is the time to let
I
us
think
know.
that's the discussion is, do we have concerns about impact to the natural areas, the park, the capacity? I think those are things maybe that you want to hear from the PR&G perspective, right, more so than,
And
yes.
Well,
for once, I'm not even as concerned about the natural, of course, but to do some kind of concert there, they're gonna shut the place down way before anybody's gonna show up and sing, right? So you're taking the day off, right? And then you gotta worry about them cleaning it all up. They're going to be there for 12 hours to do that, right? So that's a big day that your park is not available to people.
Well, and another example that was given to me when I asked some questions about this, because, of course, the park is the public's.
Yeah.
And it's paid for by the residents, right? So, by and large, you want to have the ability for our residents to have unfettered access for the most part. Now, it makes sense when we do a barn rental or things like that.
That's
It brings-
a subset, though.
Well, but then a good point was brought up to me, which is, so barns are great if you want to do a wedding, right? But can you do a wedding there while you also have 20 or 30 kids out on the playground? So yes, you're renting the barn, but does that then allow you, in the middle of your ceremony to you know,
Yeah,
have a
but
bunch of.
all you have to do is go over there one
A-
Saturday.
You know,
figure it out.
and when I thought about it that way, I thought about, well, yeah, maybe it does make sense to be something broader if you rent the barn that, you know, does it make sense, you know? Now, I mean, you'd have to communicate that out and all of those other things, because you don't want a bunch of our residents going to the park and then being turned away because somebody's rented the barn for a wedding, you know, because they want to use the playground.
Do we have a lot of demand for this?
Well, that,
Do we have a lot of
what's the
was
demand and why
just-
this is coming up?
I was approached by a music company who travels around the country and puts on concerts. But it also, in the past, people have asked about like hosting big cookouts, and people have done, 5Ks, which 5Ks are very low impact. They're there very early in the morning. We've had people do 5K and stuff. It's just something that's periodically, once a year, somebody asks me about what if we wanted the whole thing? And it's just something to bring up, really, just to see if there was any interest at all.
My visceral response to that, without thinking hard, is no.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's just me.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of trouble.
It is.
What do we get for that? It's not worth whatever we get.
My gut response
Whoever
was
we
much
are.
more ambivalent, but the more I'm thinking about it,
Oh, yeah, mine's pretty strong.
I think that, it's one thing when we do this and we provide it to the public. We close down the park for our events and make it
But
open to the
anybody
public.
can come.
But
Right,
it's
right,
for
right. That's right.
our residents to enjoy and other invitees, but to have a private event shut down what the public is paying for doesn't sit
I just don't
sit
even,
well.
I mean, yeah, I don't even know how you manage, all the 3-year-olds playing soccer in the morning. and all that.
One question I have, I know when we first did the barn, there was a lot of interest in, are we doing any weddings or anything like that? And
Yeah, people are still doing small, intimate stuff. Nobody's really, because I'm honest with people. I let people know about what the place is and that there is a playground behind there. But there is several people that have done small. Somebody just did a vow renewal reception. They'll do a lot of stuff under that the big oak tree, kind of perched up on the hill playground barn.
so it hasn't become an issue where it's precluding us from doing barn rentals?
No.
and things
Now,
like
I'm not saying, in my time, I don't know that anybody's ever done a 250-person blowout wedding or anything, but there have been small, intimate stuff. People do receptions and, no,
If you go have your wedding on the beach, other people show up.
people are there. People are there. And people know that, if you're doing you can have your wedding reception inside the barn, and you can be completely private. You can shut the doors, and it's private. It's like you're the only person there. So we've never run into any issues with anything.
So if the consensus of the board is you guys are not in favor of rentals of all of the park, I will ask for a motion for that, to recommend not allowing rentals of all of Marvin Eford Park.
Any other feedback, Michael and Deb, on that perspective?
My thought is, if it's a large.
Make sure you're speaking into your mic, sorry.
If it's more of a large-scale request to do an event there, and if it's a non-family friendly event, I think you're gonna get some pushback from residents. And then how do you differentiate who you allow to rent and who you don't? So then that's a whole nother issue. So if you don't rent out the whole entire park, like you just suggested, maybe that's the solution, but you still do the smaller scale rentals that are not creating controversy.
Right.
And one thing I think that we've always tried to be respectful of too, is when we do our events, we're very careful in terms of trying to be good neighbors,
Well, that's kind of my
And-
point. How do you say no to one group and yes to another? So if you're
You're
not,
talking about a music company or something like that.
yeah, I
they're gonna
foresee
turn up the
Walden
dial.
Pond complaining.
And they're
Already
renting
is
the
gonna
whole,
be fireworks,
and they're thinking, listen, I'm renting 26 acres. I should be able to turn it as loud as I want.
Or as
But
long
that's
as
not
I
the
want.
case,
So you can't do that. We still have noise ordinances.
Understood.
We have rental policies. Yeah.
No, we do have
Still can't do
policies
that.
to control some of that you have to clean up and you have to do
Right.
this, or then you pay, fines or
But
whatever.
the issue at hand here is the entire park.
Yeah.
Do you guys like that or not?
I do not. I don't think it's fair to the community
Michael,
to
go
take it
ahead.
Can we
offline.
not divide it? Like,
Divide the park, you said like a,
yeah, like, so I guess some people can still walk where the concert's still going on, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I think it gets
The
back to
biggest thing there is the playground.
Yeah.
you think that's the one where you have the most volume of people being impacted?
I would say.
Well, I mean, we rent out the
Time of
barn,
day,
and
right?
I think that's gonna still continue. I mean, I suppose if somebody
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to rent out the big fields at the back of,
Exactly.
Is that what you're
across
saying?
from the barn,
Yeah, 'cause-
we could probably also do that, but shutting down, but once again, like you were saying with, if you rent the barn, there's a playground there and we're not shutting that down, that if you wanna use the big field, like, other people are gonna come walk the trail and go to the garden and be on the playground, and like if you're having something on the beach, the public's there, so I think small-scale rentals are,
I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
Because you can still
reasonable.
use the rest of the 26 acres.
So that's what you're
As
saying,
long as-
Michael, like a
Yes, we're just gonna
subset? we
keep
could
it the
do
same
that?
then.
There's no way concert would take 26 acres, like,
I don't know, man, I can,
Requesting, they want to rent the entire park,
Yeah.
so they're gonna close it off.
yeah, it's more about like
We already
exclusive
allow
rights.
smaller rentals.
Right, exactly.
We already have smaller rentals, specific uses, kids soccer teams in the past have rented a field.
So we're just gonna keep on keeping it the same.
yeah, so I think everybody here is in favor of
I have no problem with those.
those,
The subset rentals?
but yeah, so the motion that you've got there, that we're.
This is
we're
just the full park rentals.
Is only for full park.
Full park
closures,
rentals, yeah. This
for
would be where the
events.
park is shut down for an event and you have to pay to get in. That's what we're saying we're not in favor of.
Yeah, I'm
correct?
not in favor of that.
Okay, so the motion would be to recommend not allowing rentals of all of Marvin Eford Park.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. So moved? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed.
God, look at us
All
today.
right, thank you, awesome.
We don't need a December meeting.
Wait till people get some.
I'm trying to keep y'all moving, just we are a little short on time.
Okay. All right, now we're just
We all
gonna.
have lives.
No, thank you, guys. I think
Speak for
we've covered a lot.
yourself. No, I'm
Reports and updates, event planning, so really that's back to Tyler.
Yeah,
Since he-
so
Since he can't do an event in the park now, he's got only small scale projects.
October 24th, that Friday, trick or treat, Marvin Eford Park, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Still accepting vendors. We have a pretty good number right now, looking to keep growing it. Come out, wear a good costume. Everybody's bringing a ton of candy. It's a great opportunity. We'll have the DJ out there. We'll have some crafts going. So it's just an evening of fun. We'll have, light towers out there for after it gets dark, so don't be scared of that. And yeah, in the past, we've done a movie to kind of close out the evening. We're not doing that anymore. We're just going to trick or treat the whole way through. If you guys want to come volunteer, you definitely can. We're definitely accepting volunteers for parking right now. We'll have deputies there off duty, parking to the road and helping us park inside the park. This has kind of, in the past, been maybe our biggest blowout. So usually expect a big crowd and a little bit of, whole lot of fun. Let's just say that.
Is there any?
Sup,
time-
Michael?
Yeah. So Tyler, any specific time that would be helpful to have us show up? I mean,
Yeah, I
I know
was gonna ask
besides
that.
parking. is there
If
things that-
somebody wanted to come help park, 4:30 would be a great time. We usually try to get the guys in, stationed up about quarter till. It's kickoff time. Yeah, and we'll find,
Yeah, besides
yeah.
parking, is there other things?
yes,
too?
you can get some chocolate. There will be some crafts to help out with, a little bit of crowd control, just kind of working the vendors, helping them unload and stuff, because usually, last year we had people bringing crates of candy. It was, it's incredible. We had people leaving and coming back to have to go get more. It's incredible.
Okay, so it sounds like we all need to be there.
Yeah,
It's a little scary.
The dentists love us.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so 4:30 is when the vendors start to show up too, or? do
Well, they'll come, they'll be setting up all day. Whenever they need to come, we'll have people probably show up at lunchtime, set up their stuff and then leave again and then come back that evening. They'll all be set up by 4 o'clock. Well, I say that, they'll all be set up by 4:30.
So that's all gonna happen, and then you're gonna shift gears for the next day too, right, after that? Or so-
Well, Hunter, you want to enter, we'll keep it running?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the next day, we will be doing the our Arbor Day celebration with the Plan Exchange being coupled as part of that. In short, just wanted to make sure that PR&G was aware that the village is currently seeking to get our Tree City USA accreditation. It's through the Arbor Day Foundation. There's kind of four criteria or four boxes you have to check, which real quick, I'll try to go through them. One is having a professional person on staff or contract. That's either me or Keith. Got that box checked. Two is to have a public tree ordinance regarding like maintaining and caring for public trees. We got that in Article 11 in the MDO. The third is it's to spend $2 per capita on tree care, maintenance, plantings, all of the above. We currently do that with pre-existing contracts with Schneider Tree Care and Barnett's with tree care for here on Village Hall and as well at the park. And the final one is doing a proclamation to proclaim an Arbor Day celebration here in the village and hold a ceremony. So therefore, we're going to be doing that on the 25th from 1 to 3 at the park. So please come out. We are also kind of looking for volunteers. Been working really close with Habitat Builders and Trees Union. We have a tree that we're going to plant. It's going to be named by the kids, and everybody can vote for the name, I guess, just not the kids.
The kids are proposing the name, and then we can all vote. Everybody gets to vote.
But yeah, would love to have you guys come out. We're gonna have some, some programming and stuff in the barn with the tree ceremony, planting ceremony around 2. Our lovely Christina Colp's gonna plant the tree and educate everybody who attends on how to plant a tree and the proper way to do that. On top of just some maintenance and tree care kind of in those early stages of life. We got a lovely swamp white oak or white swamp oak that was donated by Trees Union. It's currently at the park being watered every day, staying in the shade. So that will be the tree that's planted. But yeah, just want to make sure you guys were aware. And after we hold this, we hope to start doing this annually. And we will submit for that Tree City USA accreditation and hopefully receive it and be something that we'll continue to do each year.
I was going to say one other note. That morning, we'll also be doing the bulk drop-off event for trash that morning here at Village Hall from 8 to noon. That'll be from 8 a.m. to noon. So, load up your truck, bring everything you want to get rid of here. There's a list of accepted items on the website. So.
Yeah, that would be really awkward if the
Yeah,
bulk trash
trash
pickup
comes on
was
Arbor Day.
at the same time as the Arbor Day.
I don't know. Now I can't remember the date. Do you remember when we did the HOA president's meeting?
Last week was
Was it
it?
23rd? Okay. So we've got 7 presidents or representatives anyway of 7 different HOAs together. Bob Nunnenkamp spearheaded this, and we had really good response, at least, to talking about the Arbor Day celebration and what that meant for them. That we were going to focus on trees and getting more trees planted in more yards, not just in common areas, but they were very receptive to that. We did talk about the Monarch Mayor Pledge too, and we have a couple, I think it's like 2 or 3 of them that were there that are going to join a little task force that we're going to try to put together, that we're going to put together to share that message out with neighborhoods a little bit better and to actually get things planted in the ground, not just talk about, oh, you should have some butterfly weed, oh, you should have an oak tree, to actually get this done in people's yards.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well,
so
and not just yards. I think a good part
And
of the
common areas, yeah.
conversation was also being more aware of the things that they're doing in their common areas. Especially like the berms that we see, do they need to be meticulously maintained grass, which costs you more money to do than if you were to do pollinator, gardens on top of the things that are more native species and things like that. It can help them from an HOA perspective manage their costs, but also, bring in some of the other goals that we're trying to do as a community.
Yeah, I found out that there are some common areas that are pretty wild. They're not berms and all this manicured stuff, and they just mow them. And you don't really have to do that if you've got the right plant. I mean, you mow them once a year, but not all the time. So anyway, just learning about things like that.
Cool.
But it was a good conversation. conversation
Keith
and a
was
good
well-
first
yeah.
step.
Well, I'm glad you
to
got some
keep going.
buy-in from some of them,
Exactly.
yeah.
And we're hoping to be able to build on that and to keep sharing positive information like this.
Is Keith going to be at the Arbor Day?
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, because I
But
mean,
if not, we've got another
everybody
representative.
loved his presentation too,
Yeah.
so. great.
So we'll have a
yes.
trees union
Okay.
person there, not me,
Gotcha.
somebody else.
Okay.
And if you'd like to view those presentations, you can on habitatbuilders.com/Marvin Initiatives.
They were well done too, Pallavi, yeah, look at that.
They are.
So I guess the last thing on Arbor Day, if not, the plant exchange, I know we kind of mentioned that, but we do want to be pushing that. That's going to be the plant swap for house plants, outdoor plants, seeds, seedlings, and so.
Just not invasive.
Not invasive, Christina's at the door, but we're going to set up in the barn some tables, we'll get some signage, and then I think we're going to try and spread the word also through the master gardeners and some of the other communities.
Is that this weekend?
No,
That'll
it's the
be the
24th.
25th.
The 25th,
Oh,
the
okay,
25th.
So it is part of,
Yes.
we did, last meeting you were talking about doing, I
Yes.
think, like this weekend,
Right.
but now you're
We're
tying
going to tie it
into
into
the
Arbor Day, but we're going to use the space in the barn. So what I was thinking of is, I assume there'll be tables and things out from Halloween the night before, so we'll just leave those out, or however that looks like. So we can start to plan that.
So you have time now to pot up some things. That's what I'm doing this afternoon.
Yes,
You want to pass it back to Tyler, he's got more events.
of course. Tyler, more events.
Yes. So whole month of November, Friendship Tree. Partner up with the Christmas Bureau, Union County. You're able to, you come in here, we'll have our tree up in the lobby, we'll have name tags on there, grab a name tag, go to the front desk, fill out a form. You're adopting that kid for the holiday season. You are then responsible for that child's Christmas. You'll have, the last week of November and some of the first week of December will be the drop-off dates. You'll get that information on the form and the tags and stuff when you fill it out and you come in. We have a wonderful volunteer group that packages the gifts and loads them onto an enclosed trailer. And then the mayor is kind enough to run them over to, usually in Monroe is where the Christmas Bureau will set up and drop the gifts off. It's a really good thing. The community has always done a great job with that. We're doing 65 children this year, which is a big number, but I know the community will rally to that. Never had a problem in the past. Also in November, on the Saturday the 15th, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., we're doing another car show with first-class cars out at Marvin Eford Park. There's going to be vendor, breakfast truck, coffee trucks, stuff like that. They always bring some cool vendors. There's some awesome vintage cars. If you have one in the community, bring it out, hang out for the morning. If you don't have a car, still come out, hang out, walk around, have some fun. I was really impressed with the turnout. Last time we had, 80 or 100 people pull up in vintage cars and then like cool Lamborghinis and stuff, foreign cars, stuff like that. And then we had a great turnout from the public too, just people walking around checking it out. So definitely keep that on your calendar.
What were the hours on that one?
It's just 8 to 10 in the morning. And then lastly, for the year, December 6th, tree lighting, Saturday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Santa Claus. Still working on getting some local performances from the high school bands, choir, stuff like that. And then, we have booked a vendor to do hot chocolate and coffee again. That'll be free cookies. It's a lot of fun. Come out, enjoy a short, sweet little event. Tell Santa what you want for Christmas. And we'll have a dog kissing booth again. We always love having Miss Amy come out. It's a lot of fun. A lot going on. Busy time of the year, maybe the busiest. Yes.
Have you heard anything back from choir yet?
I have not.
Okay, so Olivia Ferre is now Olivia Romney,
That could be why.
and a different email. So
That could-
I reached out to her separately just in the last few days when I found out she had a new name, and that's why the email might not be working.
That's funny.
I'll let you know if I get a response, but
Very cool.
she's always been,
Oh, yeah, she's
very
been great to help. Yeah,
psyched to do it
absolutely.
and with the kids and everything, but I figured you might run into an issue if you had the old email, which is all I had as well.
All righty. Any questions?
Alongside Friendship Tree, we will also be taking donations for Toys for Tots. So if you'd like to bring any gifts for that, there will be a box in the lobby.
If we run out of tags.
Then
If
you
we-
can move the box out, not until then, all right?
Yeah.
That's
If you
great,
don't want to be told what to buy, do Toys for Tots as well.
okay.
Any questions on events?
And you're going to throw those scavenger hunts out there too, right?
Yeah, those will
That's after
come,
the holidays, maybe.
that'll come around in December probably.
Got a lot.
Last update, I gave my 2 weeks' notice with the village yesterday, so.
Can you cut your hair off?
Yeah, I know, it's just, I'm going
So
insane.
corporate now.
Yeah, I'm white collar, but, no,
Tyler, I don't even know who you are anymore.
I know, I'm folding. But, yeah, so I know the village will appreciate y'all's help with these upcoming events on the Parks, Rec, and Greenways board. But yeah, thank y'all for being so nice, so cool. It's been a lot of fun getting to know all of you. But yeah.
Okay, so somebody just a few minutes ago said, oh, well, Tyler's got that pretty much on autopilot. So I guess we're about to find out how autopilot
We're
that
going to
is.
find out what autopilot looks
We'll
like.
have some kind of email address that we can contact him at the end and go, this is not on
We actually had to do something.
We're very, I'm very sad.
Wow.
Yeah, this is not okay.
I know, I'm very sad. It's been
You
such a
look
pleasure.
sad.
He's
It's-
smiling, right, yeah. Yeah,
He looks really broken up.
wow.
I was saying, to be fair, we're laughing too, but
God, that's because I'm
We're
gonna
gonna
cry.
disappoint.
know.
No, that's, Michael, you had something?
Yeah, I got a question about it. So we're really sad to see you go, but will there be like a replacement or like an opening for that position?
Yeah, well, I guess.
he's irreplaceable.
At some point. It'll be something similar, I'll tell you.
Similar. Yeah, no, I mean, in all seriousness, I think that, with Davey's departure and then yours, I think there's going to be, council's probably going to be, and then we have an election, so. Yeah, I was going to say, Matt's going to be taking over everything. But no, I mean, I think with.
Scavenger hunt, yeah.
I think with the election and the two, vacancies, I think there's probably going to be some recombining and re-envisioning roles, but that's just my guess.
And I'll hop back on here and say, love this position, love this village. Moving, my fiance got a really good opportunity, and she works in the medical field, and she got a job at the Veterans Hospital in Durham. So we are going up in that direction. So I'm going to moving is the only reason.
Okay, you don't want to.
We do really wish you
Good
well.
luck.
Yeah,
Well,
you've done such a big impact here.
Yeah, and beyond that, we talk about roles and responsibilities, and, one of the things that has been great is to be able to see you grow, and take on more responsibilities that we didn't have to hire other people for. You were able to kind of take what you did, get processes and stuff around that, and just both when I was on PR&G, but also as a council member, it's just been great to see you grow, and I'm glad you're not leaving us just because you want to. That's a very good reason to leave, because happy fiance, happy wife, happy life.
That's what I'm hearing.
But no, really excited for you, and we'll struggle to find somebody to plug right in, but we'll find the right person to carry on where you left off. Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Thank y'all.
I just want to add to John's compliment too. Tyler just really did a fantastic job streamlining the Marvin Day planning. It's the meetings, just
Yeah, we were there
Spot on.
before you, and it was,
beautiful job.
you did a great job, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
we
y'all.
appreciate you.
The before and after.
Yeah, the before and after were pretty stark, so.
Well, and I'm just gonna add on to this. The work you do is great, but working with you has been wonderful. Truly, I look forward to finding some reason to send you a text.
Yeah.
Positive, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really sad.
Very much so.
Can you drink this time of day?
Yeah, hard to follow that, but, right.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for everything, Tyler. Wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Yeah, the very best.
Very
The very best, yeah, we'll find you, so, okay.
I know where Durham is.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Trails and Greenway report, I think we've covered it all, right? There's.
God, what else could we
What I
need to
say
know?
now, right? Okay. Matt, Public Works.
Yeah, we just got a couple things, got a load of rock in yesterday for the trails, aggregate for the trails, so we can, now that mowing season's winding down, we'll have time to, make the trails start the last week of this month, start getting all the Christmas lights up at the park, so they gotta be up by the first week of November. So we'll start that toward the end of this month and then here as well. We'll obviously dig the hole for you guys. We'll do that Thursday before.
Okay.
And then just, put the cones around it, caution tape it off, somebody steps in it.
Right, right.
And, we'll do what we can do to help out with that. The only other thing is, I wanted to ask you, over at the butterfly garden, where the trail goes around, it's starting to grow in.
Yes.
If you have any issue with us trimming that back,
Actually, I'll go do it. I'll do it this week even.
well, we can do it. I was told my guys, let me verify with you first,
Yeah.
what you wanted up there, so.
No, I'll just go. I need to go cut a lot of that stuff down because it's seeding and it's just gonna make things worse. I'll do it.
That's all for
Got a lot of coverage there. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, John, I know we've covered a lot already. Any other
Yeah,
updates?
I had some notes from the village council, but most of them were kind of addressed in new business. We did receive a grant from the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Great Trails Program. That was for $491,925 that would go towards that next section, S1B of the Marvin Loop. So
They've not accepted the grant yet. There's a lot we still have to figure out. Hopefully, we'll have an update soon, but it's a
it's a
It's very
matching
complex.
grant.
It's a matching, so we have to come up with the match, and also it's probably a reimbursement, so we'd have to pay the whole thing.
Correct, the way.
We're trying to go through all the finances right now to see the financial obligations, because we're still working on everything with phase 2 of the loop. So we're just trying to make sure that, everything lines up and that we actually can accept it financially. So that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah, but just wanted to make sure everybody knows
But
that
that's the
that's out there.
recognition of the effort to obtain a grant. I mean, I know we may not, right? I mean,
Well,
the staff
you
keeps
know, and-
getting those. That's tremendous. I mean,
And it's important to realize too, when you have the match, of course, it's not just free money. It is money that we do have to invest. But I think it's also important to consider the fact that that money that we would be getting back, that's all money that we're paying as taxpayers anyway. And if we're not pulling some of that back by participating in these grants and these programs, then that money that we've already paid in taxes is just going to go to other places, So some of this is, about effectively, taking advantage of monies that we as a community have already kind of invested. But we're being diligent, as we've always been. I've been on PR&G board a long time before I was on council, and one of the things as a smaller municipality is we always have to be careful in terms of how we set our priorities, And it's part of the reason why, 10, 15 years later, we're still completing a loop, We don't do everything at once. We try to, do it in scales that make sense and make the best use of our money, but we don't have a bottomless well to do it, and there are, specific challenges that you have with when you get grants, about the matches, about when you have availabilities to money, about how you have to front the money up front, so you have to have a buffer to be able to do that until you get reimbursed, So all those things play into it. But then the other thing is that, our staff is doing an outstanding job in terms of getting these grants. You think about a $490,000 grant, and, for the staff that had to participate, in being able to get us, wow, what's the return on investment in that, So we're making good utilization of our staff by going for things like this. We just have to be diligent in how we make sure that we're being responsible in spending that money and coordinating it, so. And then beyond that, I think we pretty much hit on everything else that I had down here.
I had one follow-up question, because when we were discussing the motor vehicles on the trails, there's also hours of operation at the end of that. What was council's determination on, did
No.
you discuss hours at all?
They're not interested in doing that.
Yeah, no,
this time.
I personally, I'm not either. I know too many people who get up, put headlamps on and run.
And that's really the biggest thing now,
God bless them.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I just wasn't sure how council would come down, so I don't want to.
Well, and that's
back into
also
the big
something that we did address, I think 3 or 4 months ago, when we
Yeah, that was
kind of
also in
had
the
that
joint
same
meeting, yeah.
discussion around those things. And, you know, part of it is, you know, we live in a world, you know, where the news inundates you with all sorts of things, you know? So, you know, residents do have valid concerns because things do happen out there. Now, at least at this point, are we looking at something that, you know, you also have to look at how it's enforceable, you know? And, you know, I think part of the council's position has been, listen, we're not seeing any sort of rash of, you know, issues that are going on, you know? Even with some of the issues that we're talking about with, you know, motorized scooters, things like that, we're not seeing a rash of this or bad outcomes or things like that. Right now, we're talking about what are primarily more nuisance type things. So we're trying to do that through education. We're trying to make sure people are aware of our ordinance, all of those things. But, you know, I think it's a situation where we'll always have our eyes open and our ears open so that if things are happening that we need to address, that we will. But just proactively, you know, setting specific trail hours, I think would really preclude and take away. I mean, there's people that work day shifts that do their running at night, you know, and things like that. So until, you know, we really start to see any sort of negative issues going on, I think the idea is let's just continue as we currently are and hope that by and large our residents are just respectful to each other.
No, I think that's fair. Like the e-bike thing, if it becomes, you know, we're flexible. I mean, it's not a problem right now. That doesn't preclude it being, you know, something we address differently in the future. But for right now, yeah.
And
Thank you, John.
Anything else? All right, a review of action items.
So this isn't really an action item, but we'll definitely give all of your recommendations to the council today. Scrolling back through. You guys will get calendar invites from me for your schedule for next year. And we'll cancel the meeting on the 25th, not 25th, I'm sorry, the December 2025 meeting.
Oh, no, come on.
I'm going to cancel Christmas, yeah. Canceled. And,
I guess Tyler's not here.
Well, exactly.
Christina, you need to send me send me and Tyler the finalized Village Hall Park landscaping plan so we can get that on the agenda for next week. We do need that relatively quickly.
You mean tomorrow?
Yes. At the latest. Earlier is always better. Once we get direction from council, we'll start pricing out the memorial items for Mike Cognac. That's really about it.
Okay. That was a lot, though. Thank you for capturing everything there, Austin. And any ongoing action items?
The only thing that's been on the list for a while is very low priority right now. It's just Hunter reviewing the golf cart ordinance.
Okay.
So nothing else there.
Then lastly, any open comments from anyone on the board before we close?
Shall we continue to talk about our sadness?
Yes, that's after the meeting, we just look at together. But I just do want to reiterate, I think Jen mentioned too, just a reminder for everyone about the survey, because there was a very large effort from this board to put together the questions, right? And you'll see in the survey that's represented, so our actions are going to be based on that. So just, you know, again, promote that within your communities and folks in the village to get those surveys
Yeah, I mean,
completed.
the questions that relate to this board, I mean, we're not here to exert some like independent will. It's really what we,
That's how we take.
what we see in the survey, the past survey has driven our, you know, goal setting. And so what we see in the next one will then, you know, set
When
our
does
goal
it
setting.
close?
The survey is
That's
open
November.
through Thanksgiving. It'll close on Black Friday, actually. Friday, November 28th at 5 PM.
And if in that long time period you lose your postcard, contact the village. We
So-
will find your code.
Well, no.
Well, no, not the
Don't
village.
contact,
There's a-
don't contact the village. So
Yeah.
what, so if.
Well, they can give you the link to the place to contact.
Well, we are telling people, obviously, I do not have everyone's
No,
codes, no.
no.
Those are by, Central Lina has all those codes, so people can get in. If you have any technical issues, if you lose your postcard, if you have not received it by Friday, October 10th, that is this Friday, you'll contact Central Lina Regional Council at info@centrallina.org. They will get you a code and will help you get through the survey. If you have any questions about if anyone has any questions about the questions in themselves, the way they're worded, or why a question was included, that's the sort of question to come to staff with. Anything regarding the logistics of the survey goes to Central Lina.
Great. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I know we had a long meeting, but we covered a lot of items and kind of wrapping it up. So next November's meeting will be the wrap up for the year. So with that, make a motion to adjourn today's meeting
At 10:55.
at 10:55.
So moved, is that?
So moved, yes, so moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
And
Thank you.
amen.
All right, thank you all.
Just so I get an idea where you're actually at.
You have a lot more